Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here today. I've been working on Watch Dogs for 7 years now, and Watch Dogs 2 was released just before Christmas, which in gaming terms means a long time ago. So just to refresh your memories, we've got a little video we'd like to share with you all.
In 2013, Chicago realized the promise of smart cities with CTOS, a citywide operating system merging big data with surveillance, security, and transit programs. With a few hundred lines of code, hackers were able to hijack its central servers and cripple the entire grid. Many believed the attack would be a killing blow for smart city development. They were wrong. Coordinated from the heart of Silicon Valley, CTOS 2.0 has been implemented across the United States, ushering in the Internet of Things. 6.4 billion connected devices now serve as collection points, mapping and recording our daily routines, making a more secure and more invasive system. But who else is listening? Big Brother no longer works alone. Thousands of little brothers monitor and aggregate your every move, building a complete digital profile of you to be bought, sold, or stolen in an instant. Toys study your children, reporting their play habits back to marketers. Appliances, consoles, and home security systems give corporations a window into your private life. Control of your vehicle and mobile device can now be breached remotely by anyone at any time. You may think that you are immune or underestimate the risk, but your digital shadow is already compromised. Insurance companies use algorithms to monitor your life habits and limit or deny coverage. Health providers determine if your cancer is worth treating. Search results and news feeds are skewed to bias mood and influence your vote, engineering social uprisings on a massive scale. You are now less valuable than the data you produce. This is the new reality. Going dark is no longer an option. With threats to personal freedom rising, many are stepping forward. Whistleblowers, activists, and hackers have drawn their battle lines, putting the establishment on watch. But are they threats themselves, or have they become freedom's last line of defense? Freedom's last line of defense.
So I think it's only because of those 3 minutes that we were invited to the summit talking about technology. I'm really happy to be with Violet today. Violet is a tech writer, author, and she's helped us on Watch Dogs 2, not only for the hacking part, but also for the more San Francisco base and trying to be authentic about San Francisco.
And also consulting on hackers in San Francisco, which the game is about a hacker named Marcus, in case you're not familiar, who's from Oakland, who is profiled incorrectly by the police and set up, essentially, and has to figure out how to clear his name. That's a very general idea of the plot. So a lot of it takes place in and around the Bay Area, pulling from a very, very rich and also currently very active underground hacker culture, which Watch Dogs 2 got very, very correct in the game, along with many other things.
Yes, and this video was basically all the premises or all the points we wanted to discuss. When we started Watch Dogs 7 years ago, we thought about it because of the phones we had in our pocket and how technology was basically taking everything around us in a new spiral of incertitude or things we didn't know. So we really started this brand and those games with technology at the core of it, imagining that whatever we will be doing out of that should have to be accurate, should have to be foreseeing a possible future, and trying to be a little more than just a game, but trying to provide a little edge or a little knowledge, or outlining some risks out of that. And the recent past has basically made many predictions from Watch Dogs 2.
It was uncanny, actually. What was amazing about the game was that it did the great thing that great games do, in that it told a story to the player that was a familiar story, a story that resonated with everyone, obviously tapping into a lot of fears and concerns about current news stories at the time, but also told a new story about these concepts that everyone's learning about and dealing with when it comes to data being bought and sold in the background and profiling and algorithms and things like that. And told them something new about it, not just how to manipulate it, how to become active in a world where everyone feels passive, but also sort of played out the different courses that some of these these directions could go. So for instance, the profiling software that's used on Marcus in the game was modeled, I believe, after Predpol, the predictive policing. And at the time that the game came out, now we did our press junket, mind you, in October, and the game came out in December, and so there was a big election in the middle of that. So quite a few things changed. When we were first doing the press for the game, before the game came out, predictive policing was something that was just starting to make the news. It was something that a lot of us and a lot of us hackers knew about. But it's essentially the buying and selling of data through third-party companies to police departments across the United States to profile, follow, and track protesters, and also do what they called predictive policing on different areas, where they would basically do algorithmic predictions on certain areas of certain neighborhoods to predict where crime would happen. Not surprisingly, it was a really racist algorithm, which is directly how that ended up sort of playing into the storyline of the game. And then right around the time the game was coming out was when a company called Geofeedia was exposed in the news. And Geofeedia was essentially using developer tools to scrape data off of things like Facebook and then resell it to police departments. And this game was prescient in many ways, and that was one way it was prescient, in that the game had already been sort of created and followed that to its natural conclusion of what could possibly go wrong. But then what could possibly go wrong went wrong. And after we did our press junket, actually the ACLU exposed that Geofeedia was specifically targeting Black Lives Matter protesters.
Absolutely. And there were so many other things like manipulating elections.
Yeah.
And, all the elements and the connected city and the fact that Internet of Things was becoming a little too invasive in our life and collecting maybe a little too many datas. And I think what has happened is that we've put so much energy into trying to be true to the technology, and especially trying to leverage the point of view of hackers, which is very unique when you think about it. When they look at technology, it has allowed us to extrapolate on technology that were already there, but on which the dark side was not already seen or already planned.
Right.
And it really comes down to all the work we've been doing with you and many others, trying to narrow down the technology itself, just to make sure that whatever we were writing with the writers or on the different medias also, we're basically always rooted in this reality of technology. So technology is not only a tool to us to create the world and create gameplay and loops, it's also a mother of creating narratives on top of that, and also to be relevant and move forward with that.
And very empowering narratives as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, terrifying dystopias are great in games, but not in reality. And Watch Dogs 2 was really great in that you took really complicated hacking tools and you put them in a game and you made it so that people could understand them and use them and empower them to change the world around them. So did you have to, I'm curious, did you have to change any of the hacking tools that you put in?
Yes, the thing is, some hacks are way too complicated. The nice trick
the shorthand that you did.
We had to shortcut some things. The trick we used is for Watch Dogs 1, we never wanted to go into a dystopian sci-fi kind of universe. So we've always wanted to be very positive about tech and just exposing the risks. Not saying technology is bad, because we're not your uncle at the end of the table saying, in my time we didn't have cell phones. We were really trying to push this aspect, this positive aspect of it. However, yes, some things are too complicated. So we had this one element of anticipation, which was the smart city, CTOS, which is probably the only thing in the game that is a little off in terms of technology, because we extrapolated cities like Songdo in Korea and some experiments in different cities, but we made the whole city connected to one single entity. And this allowed us to shortcut some hacks, because we didn't have to explain why things were on different networks or path or whatever, and just say, you've hacked CTOS and you can move forward with it. However, the elements you were hacking through CTOS were all based on real hacks. From objects or people or databases that we validated with you and all the consultants we had on the project.
Cool. And also, you put some insider jokes, some hacker insider jokes. How were those received by the hacking community?
I think it was pretty much well received. The hacking community is super creative and is super funny as a whole. So it would have been terrible not to have those little insights into the culture, and your boy Serge kind of kind of tidbits, but also because the hacking community has been really close to us, have been really helping us along the way, and it was a great way to showcase the culture. We've been trying to be as accurate as possible and as real as possible because we love hackers, and we think they are the one really holding up this whole technology thing together in those days where we can't understand anything that's happening behind our screens.
Right.
So this idea of the Robin Hood, we wanted to celebrate and to embrace and make sure that instead of the very Hollywoodish trope of this guy moving his hand in front of a screen with a super UI, we would still represent the craft of hacking accurately and in a way that would empower people, not only to think, but to look at the thing around. And that reminds me of a sentence you had when we were doing the tour, when you were saying that you enjoyed the game because you felt that if we looked at the city of San Francisco the same way hackers will look at it.
Yeah, that's one of the wonderful things I've loved about the game, actually, is that it takes the person who isn't a hacker and it gives them the view of the hacker, whereas someone who doesn't hack sees it as sort of this mysterious black voodoo, crazy magic stuff, and you see that's how Hollywood represents it constantly. And in the game, you start to see that it's not a mystery, it's really just an understanding of the way the world operates, sort of behind the veneer of what you see. And so it takes you from a passive position in the world into a very active position, from, this world is doing things to me, to I can suddenly manipulate this world. And it's absolutely perfect with the game mechanics that you had as well.
Yes, absolutely. And we worked on the mechanics to reflect somehow this element by being as systemic as possible, so that system would interact and you can create things out of the chaos you would generate and be smart about it.
Yeah. Was there anything that surprised you about the way the game was received?
Some things, yes, but overall we really enjoyed that because I think we tried to portray the world as it is. Mm-hmm. So there are some, I wouldn't say social elements, but there are obviously some consideration in the way we were depicting the world. It was super well received. There was always a risk, especially in those days of super reaction on internet.
Right.
So it was a real fit, but it was also about the reception from San Francisco people.
Oh, interesting.
About how we recreated the city and how it felt authentic to them. I mean, we come often, and we've been discussing with many people from here, and you also, that really told us that we nailed things down. The other thing I think people really enjoyed is the fact that by using a group of hackers instead of a single character, we were able to provide different point of view or different ideas about topics. Watch Dogs 2 was based around the idea of describing algorithm and how algorithm have an impact on our lives. But we always thought that we couldn't have a one single-minded point of view on that because it's so diverse and it has to be described as deeply as possible without being boring.
Right.
So having this group of characters with different personality was always allowing us to give some insights or some pointers. This is a way to think about this issue. This is a way to think of this issue. And then we managed not to be too dogmatic and just to be illustrative, even though the characters have opinions, and we also have opinions. We tried to portray in that. But again, we never wanted to be dogmatic.
Why is that?
Oh, because it's a game. I mean, I heard someone talking about linear medium before. I believe that by spending 40 to 60 hours on a product, it would be too sad to have one single idea that is not even yours.
Okay.
As a result. It's much more interesting to provide all the tools for someone to make up his mind and let him make it something for him. What we did for Watch Dogs 1 was really trying to show people what was happening behind the curtain of technology, of hyperconnectivity. And I think the results were 60% of the players said playing the game had an impact on the way they were using their phones and technology in general.
That's interesting.
Which was huge. Did they do it right or not? This is another question, but at least it had an impact on them. And by participating in the medium and by playing a game instead of just consuming a documentary or something like that, we can put some real content into that. People can make their mind. And I think when you come up to a conclusion instead of using one that was given to you, it works a little better.
That's interesting because I've seen debates in games and gaming about giving players too many choices. And so I was wondering why you left it open so many times for the players.
The choices we leave are in the systems, so they can play with the systems. In terms of narrative, we provide different point of views. So it's not about choice. The player will make his own choice about what we've been exposing. And given that technology has become so complicated in the past years with internet, social medias, and all the things that we consider in the game, it was important to us to at least expose what it meant. I mean, this video you've seen is talking about a lot of elements that people don't know at all. Like when they accept the agreement on their phone for a new app, those elements are not into this, and they don't think about that. So hopefully by playing Watch Dogs 2, they had a little, itch when they were accepting this new app or social post.
Interesting. So you wanted to sort of raise awareness with the game?
Absolutely. This was part of what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why we had to be authentic in the technology we were showcasing, because without that, people wouldn't have taken us seriously on those topics.
Did it surprise you and your team how things played out in the news?
I would say yes, because it's always surprising, but we almost had the same magical moment when we made Watch Dogs 1. Oh. I think the day before E3, when we were introducing the game, Snowden made his revelations. It was always, we have always been very close, in fact, to the actuality. I put that to the fact that we spend a lot of time with the hacking community.
Yeah.
They're usually a step ahead in terms of technology risks and all those kind of elements. So we tend to be a little faster than the press into those issues, and we have time to develop the features and the narratives before they really happen. But that's really all due to the hacking community.
It makes a lot of sense. You had some things that you wanted to say about AR and VR.
Oh yeah, because we're starting to explore AR and VR for different projects nowadays, and there was this anecdote I was saying. For a different project, we went to visit Jet Propulsion Lab, sorry, it's hard for a French to say that, JPL, from NASA, and to discuss, some elements for a project of ours. And when we arrived, they were working on creating some interfaces to pilot rovers on distant planets or just distant settings. And basically, instead of us getting a lot of information, the tables were turned, and we spent almost half the day discussing with their engineer on how to design a proper UI, how to support this kind of interaction with the screen and its intent behind that. And we look at everything that's happening in AR today, and I think us as video game maker that have been creating interfaces for the past 30, 40 years, we're really going to the vocabulary, in fact, we've been creating for 30 years in terms of signs and feedbacks, in terms of UI, and all those kind of elements are becoming extremely relevant today, especially with the advent of AR. And we know that AR will be mainly used for inputs and explanations and signs and feedbacks about the environment. And I think the work we've been doing will pioneer, in fact, the usage and how AR can become mainstream, because we already settled a very nice vocabulary that people understand immediately, which is something in terms of video game that has been really, I wouldn't say lacking, but hard, because each designer usually have his own set of words and vocabulary you have to latch onto, which is something movies and other art form doesn't have.
Right.
So I think we're gonna see the advent of game designers soon, reshaping reality instead of the opposite, when we're trying to reshape or to recreate what reality is.
Your worlds.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. I think we're done.
I think we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.